Hi, everybody. This is Shauna Griffiths. I'm host of Real Talk by SLG Impact, and I am absolutely thrilled to have with us today Kelle Coleman. Kelle is the Senior Vice President of Brand Partnerships and Events at Nielsen, and she also happens to be a very dear friend of mine from many years ago working together. And will also say Kelle is our newest addition in the SLG Impact Advisor Group. So thank you so much for coming today and joining us, Kelle.
No, thank you, Shauna, for having me. I will literally do anything for you. And so I'm so happy to have this conversation today.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, you absolutely. I think I wrote about it the other day on LinkedIn when I announced you. You just absolutely light up the room. I remember when Matt Pizzaris and I saw you for the first time, you walked into those Nets offices. We said, we have got to hire her. And it's just been, just watching your journey through those years. I'm always like never surprised, but always just in awe. And so I know you went from Reebok to the Nets, Macy's, then Nielsen, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And Nielsen, I mean, international. I see posts and pictures of you all over the world. And so it's just such an incredible journey. And, you're a big deal, Kelle Coleman.
I appreciate that. I do not take credit for any of my accomplishments. I know that I could not have done half of the things without peers, mentors like yourself, people just rooting me on, my family. So I'm very in tune, when you're walking through this life and trying to do right and be good and try to be of service to the work that you're doing, both personal and professional, you ultimately get to the point where you're not doing any of this alone. So I am just forever grateful for when I walked into that room at the Nets. I felt very confident in that moment when I left the office with you and Matt, because I was so much like, I want to work for them. I can learn from them. And having people like that in your life and continue to be in your life, whether you talk to them every day or not, but knowing that they're cheering you on, knowing that you can lean into them, has just honestly been a blessing for me. So I know that this is not all on me. This is on the help of so many people and on the backs of so many people. So I'm forever grateful.
Oh, that's awesome. It's funny because I was actually going to ask you, like, in the midst of everything, like, how do you keep yourself grounded? But that's, I think, a really good point to that is what you're saying about all the people and the journey. And I loved how you said it doesn't necessarily matter how frequently you talk to someone. So I think that you pull people.
A big part of the grounded piece for me is grace. Giving yourself grace first so that you can give it to others is a huge part of how I try to walk my life and live my life. Because if I'm not able to give myself grace, sometimes I'm failing, forward. Sometimes I feel like I'm failing backwards. Some days I feel like I have a lot of anxiety. We're all human. We have these feelings, but giving myself grace to feel those things, to be in them, to honor them, but also not to live in them, to not sit in them, is a huge thing that I walk every day. It's a walk that I have to do every day, is that I am choosing to give myself grace here. I am choosing to think abundantly. I am choosing, it's a choice every single day that I have to actively work at. And anyone who doesn't, kudos to them. But for me, I actively have to walk in that and live by that and think about that so that I can continue to move on and have these conversations and do the work that I'm set out to do.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny that you said confidence earlier, because I think that one of the things that's always stood out to me about you is an incredible sense of confidence in yourself and belief in yourself. And, not to be confused at all with arrogance whatsoever, but it is that sense of grace and pride in who you are. And, I brought you in actually to speak to a staff of mine a couple of years ago now, a few years, all blurs, but you said something that it's like a beacon for me. I think about it. And you said, trust your dopeness. And that was your takeaway. And I'd love for you to talk about that, because I bet through the years and through some of the things you faced, even, as a Black woman coming up in the industry, I'm sure that's been a bit of a beacon for yourself. So I'd love for you to talk about that.
Yeah, trust your dopeness is something, it is just something that has to like live within you. And it actually really talks a lot about grace because
Mm,
there are going to be moments where you feel insecure. There's going to be moments where you're not confident in maybe the product that you're delivering or the work that you're doing or what you've been asked to do by your boss or whoever, senior executives. And you got to, at some point, do the work. And so like for me, it's like, how am I going to get over this? Like I might not have ever done this before. I might not have seen something like this. So how do I figure it out? How do I navigate, situations? And a lot of it is about reminding myself that I'm dope. It's not about, like you said, being cocky. It's not about not understanding that I don't make mistakes or things can happen, but it's about, I got to trust myself
yeah,
enough to be able to start it, to be able to do it. And it's not about doing it 100% correct all the time. I
no,
mean,
right.
there are certain places and times where you can give yourself a little bit more grace than, other times. But for me, it's really about trusting myself enough to know that the skills and the work that I have put in to even be doing something of this magnitude or working with these people or talking to these people in front of audiences and things like that. I got to trust myself first,
Yeah,
right? I got to give myself the grace to feel all of the feels, feel really anxious or cautious or all of those things. I have to give myself grace to do that, but knowing that I have to trust what the skills that I have, the skills that I have learned, the skills that I am going to learn by going
yeah,
through the process is huge
true.
too. So the trust, the dopeness is really about that. I have to trust myself first, um, to give myself that confidence and that boost. And I hope that others can lean into that. That moment in your gut where you're like, oh gosh, did I deliver this correctly? Did I say these things right? Did I do enough pre-work to
Yeah,
deliver what I need to do? Can I get the buy-in that I need to get? All of those feelings, it's like that moment right before it happens. You got to just say, you got to trust yourself. You got to trust how dope you are to deliver. And you might
yeah,
not get it. It might not be 100% correct, but that's okay. You know
yeah.
what I mean? But you got to trust yourself that you are there for a reason. You were
Hmm.
asked to deliver this. You were meant to deliver this. And so you got to trust that part in you.
Yeah, that's incredible. Gave me a little bit of chills there. But it's so true. I think all of us, as especially as leaders, and I loved how you spoke earlier about being a servant leader, and we don't come with all the answers. We don't come perfect, and I think there is that bit of saying, like, okay, I'm going to trust as much as I can as all of me and just put myself out there forward. And, you've got that right intention and everything. And I think it really just, it is the way to lead forward, and I think that the opposite of that is staying stagnant or going backwards, and I'm not about to do either.
Right. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants to go back there.
It's so true, it's so true. But you keep like getting things like to the next level, and what is like what's that process like for you? I think you had shared a little bit with me before about something like you had a vision to get to the international side of things. And so like do you source something for inspiration that helps you to kind of find your next moves or
I think a lot of it is, and I've gone through different waves of how I've approached this, and as you get older and you get more mature and you start trusting yourself and your dopeness a little bit more, where it's like a muscle, right? Like
yeah,
it's like working out. Like you got to keep at it to keep
yep,
getting, to keep going that extra mile, to keep getting better. You have to keep doing it.
yeah,
It's not something, for me at least, that comes supernatural. So I
right,
always have to flex that muscle. I always have to do it. And so a lot about how I've moved up is trusting myself, but also I'm in this phase currently where I'm trusting the skills that I have. And
yeah.
I'm really leaning into those skills and not devaluing them.
Mm,
Sometimes in corporate America, we oftentimes devalue some of those skills that are super important to retaining top talent, to
yeah,
building dynamic, revenue driving, impact driving teams. And I have to remind myself that those things are skills. You can look
hmm,
at them how you want to, soft skills or whatever, but those things are important to being a good leader.
Absolutely.
And I'm in that point of my life right now where I am really honing in or doing my best, because that's what it all is doing my best, is to
Yeah.
hone in on the skills that I have and lean into where that allows me. And I'll say in my past, I've always, it's so crazy, but I've always trusted myself,
Mhm.
with the different moves that I have made in my career. At the time, I would write down things that I want. I would write down certain things, but I'm often not like a 5-year, 10-year plan type
Yeah,
of
me neither.
person. Those things give me a lot of anxiety. I love people who are like
Totally.
that. I totally respect people who are like that and have a vision, and I respect it. But for me and me personally, those things give me a lot of anxiety. So like
Yeah.
for me, I try to take every step, and it's like in that moment, it's like, okay, when something doesn't feel right or something someone else tells you it doesn't feel right, because there's layoffs in there are all the dynamic things of working in corporate America, and it's just like you realize you got to trust yourself on this journey, like because you've been laid off or because you've left a job or you've left this part of your job and you're doing something else now, you have to remember that this is all a journey, and we're discovering and we're learning and we're
Yeah.
unlearning these things all the time. And
Absolutely.
so I mean, honestly, I hate to keep saying it, but it is about trusting yourself in that moment that you're
Yeah.
making the right decision. And oftentimes I think about right now is living in abundance. Like
Yeah.
what's the greatest thing that can happen versus thinking about the worst thing that can happen, right?
Right.
What are all the good things that can happen by you taking a next step or looking or having conversations? So I like to think about it in that lens, because it gives a lens that, like, as soon as you say, what's the best thing that happened,
Yeah.
you automatically light up. You automatically smile, because it's like, oh my God, you start really thinking about the best things that can happen. And those
Yeah.
are also on the table versus thinking about the things, what are the worst things that can happen. And so I am, again, actively working on that thought, and it's a muscle that you constantly have to flex.
Yeah.
But that's kind of just how I have moved in my career. There was this one part where I was just like, I trust myself. I know that I wasn't brought into Matt and Shauna's office to be my endpoint. I know that there is more. I know that there
Yeah.
is abundance. I know that there's more out there for me. So when you sit in that space and you really lean into that space, universe, God, whatever you believe, it opens up, it shows you, and you gotta trust that process. I will say I was, in my career, I worked mostly B2C.
Mhm.
So when I went to Nielsen that first day, it's like, I remember it's like the first day of high school. I felt nervous. I'd
Yeah.
never been in a marketing role in a B2B function. I didn't know what that was like. It was a big learning curve within Nielsen around measurement and what I did not know. And so I was a little anxious about it, but at some point I trusted myself in the role
Yeah.
that I was hired to do.
Right.
And I honed in on those skills. And I think senior leadership over time, past and present at Nielsen, saw that value in me, saw that skill set in me, and
Mhm.
then truly invested in me. And I'm thankful for those times. I'm thankful for the jumps. I'm thankful for the layoffs, because it allowed me to also explore a whole other side of marketing that I would have never done if I had trusted what only things that I knew and only things that I had seen.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. It's funny, I read something a while ago that I've kept close to me, and it's something about like not all storms are come that are meant to destroy you. And so it is. I think these things are like these parts that help you in your evolution, get, kind of push you to the next thing. I think it's so true as you're talking about trusting yourself. If we don't trust ourselves, then like who the heck are we going to trust?
right.
But it can be hard and we can get on our in our own ways through that. But I love you had this reoccurring theme. We've talked about like kind of this environment and the people that you've had around you. And I know that when you went to Nielsen, you also got really involved in the Black Business Resource Group, right? And
Mhm.
I'm saying it wrong.
No, you did. You said it right.
And I'm curious how it's been to work in an organization where you have that as part of resources available and how that impacts your journey.
Yeah, I am super grateful. And I would probably at all of the companies that I had worked for, and I don't want to quote, maybe they did or not, but up until then, I had not been active in what we then called them employee resource groups. And when I
Mhm.
got to Nielsen, I was thankful enough for my boss at the time was very active in our employee resource group, which is now turned into business resource groups at Nielsen. And, so I automatically joined in one, I want to look good with my boss. I want to be, and I wanted to be engaged. And,
Right.
at that point in my life, it was nice because I had like, it creates like a family within a family. You had people to bounce off ideas. You were meeting colleagues. At that time, Nielsen was a 40+ thousand company. And so it's hard to navigate.
Yeah.
I've been talking to people via, whatever form of a virtual platforms since I've been at Nielsen because of us being
Yeah.
such a global company. And so, getting to know people can be hard and
Mhm.
things like that. And I was in a situation where I had to work with a lot of senior leadership very early on, which I'm very thankful for. And so SABLE, which is our Black employee resource group or our Black business resource group, really allowed me to connect with different people across the business. And it was a great tool for me to learn parts
Yeah.
of the business that if I had to just stay with my head down working in my area, in my function, I might not have worked there. And it also allowed me to hone in on my leadership skills. I
Mm.
later became the leader of our Northeast region at the time, based off of how we were structured. And I did that for 5 years, running and putting on programming for our associates, our Black associates, or people that were identified as Black, or people that were invested in supporting our Black associates. So we put on programmings, we partner with other clients in the media
Great.
space or in our space. And so it was really nice to like be able to flex those other skill sets in a safe environment,
Yeah.
and so that really like, just honed in, and it got you, one of the benefits of working through the business resource groups is that it gives you the opportunity, that gives you the visibility that
Mm.
sometimes you might not often get, especially if you're coming in at a junior level, gives you
Yeah.
visibility to senior management because they really invest in the BRGs. It's a business resource group for a reason. It's
Yeah.
not there to just, always have, it's all there for the cultural moments and educating our associates, but it's also there to supply, to be a resource to the business, to tap into understanding the market, understanding cultural norms, understanding people, which is which is an important piece of Nielsen, right? And so, having that experience leading that and now serving as executive sponsor of our Black business resource group, it really is a full circle moment in my leadership and in my development as well. And so I find a lot of joy in being of service to
Mm.
our associates and to all associates that participate in all of our BRGs across.
Yeah. So awesome to hear that you've got that great support around you and that you're just evolving. And as you're talking, like you have really been so active in your own journey forward. And I think there's this like huge bit of awareness that's come through as I'm hearing you talk. And I just can't get over how what you've done with yourself and your career and the impact you've had. So I'm just so glad that you came here today to share with us. And I look forward to you contributing more and more to SLG impact as we move forward. So thank you, lady.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to bring impact and do the work with you and the other advisors. And I'm happy to do whatever I can. So thank you for
Yeah.
having this moment for me.
Thank you. Thank you. If anybody wants to get in touch with Kelly, you can hit her up on LinkedIn or you can hit her on through us at SLG Impact. And everybody have a great day. Thank you, Kelly. And everybody trust your dopeness.
That's your dopeness.